I have no friends. Or, at least I used to have friends. You see, the year was 2024, and my dearest slime Skeletron asked me if I wanted to play a game with him. And, you know, because I'm a great friend, I said of course. This game was called Terraria, but there was a catch. Friendly fire was enabled, meaning that every stray bullet, every missed spell, and every whatever you call this would do crippling damage to me, leaving me broken and on the ground, weeping and remembering the good old days when the four of us in this video would eat ice cream together and watch cartoons on Saturday mornings. But now I'll never be able to look at Skeletron, Throarbin, or even Cold Toast the same way again. This is the story of how we beat Master Mode Terraria with friendly fire enabled. The moment I spawned in, I knew there was something that I needed desperately. Shelter. You see, while the other three were bumbling around like apes, I was being calm, collected, a real Sigma male in the wild. So, I found a Wyatt-shaped hole and climbed right on in, hoping to never be seen again. However, the hole was dark, the hole was lonely, and the hole was scary. Because of this, I decided that I needed some kind of creature to keep me company in my goon chasm. And as I longed desperately, my wish was granted by a beautiful purple creature with the bounce of an angel. I had finally found a pet that I could play with in my cavern. So I decided to pop up to the surface and tell it that there was free candy in the ominous floor hole to the right. The slime, being the gluttonous fool that it was, decided to happily follow me and become my best friend forever. But there was another hungry little guy who would catch wind of the candy promise, and that guy was none other than Skeletron. However, when Skeletron arrived, he found that there was no candy in the hole, but instead a poor bald man and his child that he loved very much. This enraged Skeletron, and he decided to mercilessly stab me in front of my child. Luckily, I was able to hide my slime under the floor, and Skeletron decided to spare it. So, when I respawned, I had one goal: return to my beloved child and show it that everything would be alright. However, my child had been traumatized by seeing its bald father get torn to pieces and believed that I was some kind of imposter coming to kill it. So, my slime attacked me in blind confusion, and Throarbin happened to be passing by at that very moment and thought it might be helpful if he came down and killed the evil slime trying to kill me. So, all I could do was watch in horror as a cactus man with good intentions brutally slaughtered my confused goop child in front of me. So, a broken man, I decided that I needed to find a piece of land to live on with much more privacy than my current one. My search for a home safe from the wrath of the others led me deep underground, or at least I tried to escape into the earth, until an angry Skeletron decided that he wanted to go for round 2. I was once again just minding my own business and digging a hole, and I heard air raid sirens go off above me as I was showered in live bombs. There was really nothing I could do, and I was just blown to smithereens. Now, you know what they say, the devil shivers when a nice guy loses his temper. And not only did I lose my temper at this point, but I also lost my beloved child. So, I decided to go on a recon mission to figure out where everyone else was hiding at. From context clues in the Discord call, I determined that Throarbin and Skeletron were in the snow biome, but there was one wild card that I still hadn't tracked down yet: Cold Toast. You see, Toast had spoken very few words up until this point, and I was afraid he was pulling a Teddy Roosevelt and was hiding a big stick behind his silence. This meant that I had to go on a stealth mission to infiltrate his last known hideout, the pyramid. Now, Cold Toast was a man with expansive territory and a history of bloody conflict. In this world, crossing Toast meant choosing death, and I was not going down without a fight. Now, some of you might be saying, "But Wyatt, Toast never bothered you once, and while you were off starting a sludge family in the cavern, he was pretty much also minding his own business." And let me stop you right there. Silence is violence. Inaction is action. And hot dog is sandwich. Toast was in the Discord call, and he could very clearly hear my desperate cries to be saved from the other two who were mercilessly killing me and my child, and Toast chose to do nothing. He didn't even send me a "sorry for your loss, bro" text, and I was furious. So now that we understand my extensive beef with Cold Toast, let's get into how we began the most legendary turf war in the history of PvP Terraria. You see, Toast named himself the Pharaoh of the Desert, which one would think implies that he owns the desert of the world. But what if I told you that he had also laid claim to the entire cave system underneath the main house at spawn. Now, that sounds pretty greedy if you ask me, and as a freedom fighter trying to end his tyrannical rule over the underground, I decided that I was gonna set up an encampment deep beneath his pyramid of lies and deceit. So, let me explain the map of this turf war real quick. Basically, we have Toast's pyramid, sitting high up near the surface, where he does Pharaoh activities like swimming, eating sand, hanging out with this anthropomorphic cat, and eating sand. Beneath the pyramid lies a minecart track that functions as a sort of supply line where all of Toast's back alley sand dealings happen. But what if I told you that there was not one railroad, but 2 railroads? At the end of the second railroad was an abandoned shack, and it was a perfect location for my new base of operations. So, I decided to do a little bit of tidying up, and while I was working, I noticed that a crowd of slimes was gathering up around me. Well, it turns out that word travels fast in the world of slimes, and these little guys knew that I had allied myself with the slime cause, and they had come to help me take down Cold Toast. So, while I constructed my new home, the slimes took on the job of protecting me from potential attackers. And it was about the time that I had finally finished making a wonderful base with a bed and not 1, but 2 unlit chandeliers that it was finally time for my hired muscle to shine. You see, Toast had not yet discovered that I was starting a revolution on his territory, and he was zipping down railroad number 2. Little did he know that I had planned an ambush for this very situation. Hiding beneath the water were my highly trained slime assassins that longed for the blood of royalty, and much like the French Revolution, Toast was decapitated by the citizens of his own territory. It was after this great opener that it seemed like peace between us would no longer be an option. However, against all odds, Toast arrived back at my doorstep with a peace offering. He threw to me a shine potion, which was the most thoughtful thing that any of these YouTubers had done for me this entire run. And now that I think about it, that is kind of sad, seeing as, you know, we still have to beat the game. But regardless of that, I was excited that I finally had a friend alongside me that could beat up Skeletron and Throarbin for what they had done to me. So, now that Toast and I were on good terms, I took the liberty of making a secret entrance into his home that only I knew about, you know, as all good friends do. I wouldn't want him misbehaving after all, and the only way to know that he isn't is if I can watch him at all times. I also added a nice route to the surface so that the 2 of us could plan our next move against the other 2 and get justice for my slime. However, before I could go to the surface and find Throarbin and Skeletron, I had to get my slime warriors some money so that they wouldn't despawn when I left. Now, it was time for me to go to the surface and see how the others were doing. But it was at this moment that the greatest double cross in history happened. You see, as I was meeting up with Throarbin for some diplomacy talks, Toast said in the VC that he was going to go and kill all of my slimes.
How do you do? Go kill slimes now.
The only man in this run that had ever done anything for me ended up being nothing more than a snake. So he began rushing down the caverns to try and beat me there. However, while Toast was playing checkers, I was playing 5D chess with multiversal time travel. Let me break down how this series of events unfolded for you now. Toast claims that he's going to go and kill all of my slimes. Now, how do you think I respond? Do I panic, believing that everything I had worked for was now in jeopardy? Wrong! I simply taunted him, knowing that I'd already won. Oh, are you? You think you got them? You think you can beat me down there? While Toast was scrambling, trying to get the upper hand, I was calm in front of Throarbin. Almost too calm. This is when I revealed my trump card to Throarbin and gazed into my mirror. You see, I'd set my spawn next to my slimes, and Toast was unknowingly running headfirst into my masterfully set trap. So, I set up with my bow and flaming arrows, and just waited to spring a trap on Toast. And once again, he fell right into it. But Toast wasn't slacking either, as he had come with his own diversionary slime to soak up my arrows. But I was just too strong. I blasted through this slime and warded off my beloved warriors. But once again, I was left all alone with nobody but slimes on my side. Now that I had proven to the others that I meant business, I had to power up so that they'd never be able to mess with me again. But before I could get started, a curious Throarbin was interested in seeing my slime army. At first, my guard was up and I attacked him, but once I understood that he meant no harm, I let him take a peek and sent him on his way. But because I had fresh wounds of betrayal, I set up a wall before I left so that he'd never be able to get to my family. But now guess what time it is? Mining montage! None of these fools mine like I do. I'm a professional miner, and it paid off. Oh, what's that sound? Yeah, that's right, money is calling, and I never refuse to pick up. I got a platinum breastplate, I got silver greaves, I got cloud in a bottle, and I got a rootin' tootin' flare gun, goddammit. I was dripped out like nobody's business, and it was time for me to go back to the surface and show off. Unfortunately, the worst two people that could have been at spawn were there. I'm talking the infamous serial killer Skeletron, and none other than the Pharaoh himself, Cold Toast. And to my sadness, Skeletron knew my weakness all too well. You remember when I was at my worst? You know, my child had just died, and I was trying to dig a hole to escape my grief. Well, if so, you would also remember when Skeletron rained bombs on my head as though I was Great Britain in World War II. And as a result, I had severe PTSD even from the sight of bombs, and he knew that. So when he hit me with a surprise attack and I was beating the snot out of him, he pulled out his trump card. Enough explosives to sink Rhode Island into the ocean. I was freezing up and decided that my only move was to run. But the opportunistic Toast used the Curse of Ra to catch up and cut me down. So, now that I knew that they would stop at nothing to kill me, I decided to use a gravitation potion and turn myself into the Aerial Space Shuttle, or ASS for short. While in space, I found a balloon that would further increase my mobility, turning me into a force of nature. Knowing that he was far too weak to ever stand up to me again, Skeletron asked me for help to help him conquer the jungle, and I reluctantly joined him for a brief adventure into the bowels of the earth. So, we arrived in the jungle, and I played the defensive role while the feeble Skeletron tried desperately to find anything that would make him stronger. But what I should have known was that Skeletron would be up to his usual shenanigans. Not even 5 minutes into our adventure, he was already threatening to throw bombs at me.
Chat, should I use the bombs?
You should not use the bombs, chat. Now, knowing that he'd probably die if he did, I was quite confident that he wouldn't backstab me, but no one can ever be 100% sure, so I was very cautious whenever he stood behind me. Eventually, my digging led me to a cave full of enemies, and they left me at death's door, but I narrowly escaped. This was when I truly realized what kind of man Skeletron was. In my vulnerable state, he attempted to kill me, but I was just too strong. His sword blasts just bounced off of me while I slowly pulled out my bow and gunned him down. All he could do was run and hide, and that's exactly what he did. But now that he knew his place, alright.
It was a joke, it was a joke, it was a joke, it was a joke.
He was far more willing to cooperate. So, we found a chest, and he managed to pick up the accessory that he was hoping for from the jungle, the Pharaoh claws. But shortly after, I was struck down by a slime and was returned to spawn. And because I was practically bullied by Skeletron this whole time, a generous Throarbin decided to give me some Hermes boots. Now, if you've been paying attention, you might notice that I had a cloud in a bottle, a shiny red balloon, and Hermes boots. My mobility was so good that literally nobody could stand up to me anymore, and all I had to do was wait patiently for everyone else to be ready to fight the Eye of Cthulhu, because I was already there. And luckily, the wait wasn't that long, and we were fighting the big old eyeball that very night. Now, believe it or not, bosses can be really annoying if friendly fire is on. Luckily, when we were all picking our classes, I decided to pick the class that would be the biggest problem for everyone else, but I'd be relatively safe. That's right, I was the Ranger. Remember kids, when given the choice, always choose to be a problem. So, when the boss spawned in, I had a wonderful plan. Stay far away and hold down the shoot button. This meant that I was taking no damage, but at times a stray arrow or maybe a bullet may or may not have killed my teammates. But you know what? They deserved a couple projectiles to the face because I was still mad at them for all of the terrible things that they had done to me in the past. What this grudge meant was that I was also secretly on patrol for my teammates when they were low. Like this moment where I just blatantly killed Skeletron when he was vibing. And before you nerds hit me with a, "You are griefing the run and you should be ashamed," just remember that you sound like a nerd right now, and holding grudges is what cool alpha males do. I forgive, but I never forget. Haha, just kidding. I never forgive either. As the fight raged on, it was clear which one of us had the best gear and sickest skills, and that was none other than myself. All I could hear from the others was like, "Dude, I have 15 seconds left, stay alive," or "1 sec, I need to get to the nurse." What they didn't know was that I didn't even have any healing potions. I was just flexing my aura on the eye and nothing was ever gonna go wrong. Like, can you see these moves? God damn, that boy is smooth as glass and he's kicking ass. Now, imagine you're looking at this roster, and you had to pick the one who would be in a clutch scenario against the floating eyeball. We've got Bone Boy with a sword. Pros: he has a sword made of ice that looks cool. Cons: he's made of bones and has no muscles. Next up, we got the Pharaoh Magician. Pros, he's a wizard, and that's kinda cool. Cons, he doesn't have any magic weapons and was using shurikens. Next, we have the Hat Man himself. Pros, evil furballs. Cons, mysteriously he always has arrows in him. And finally, we have a man who has lost it all. Pros, incredible fighter. Cons, emotionally unstable. My money is on Ted Kaczynski over here with a bow, and let's just say he pulled through. Everyone else was dead, and I was left with the desperation Eye of Cthulhu with like 4-player health, meaning that I had to last longer than anyone ever has to in single player. And I pulled it off by the skin of my teeth, and let me tell you, there is not a lot of skin on my teeth. So now that everyone understood my power, they really didn't want to mess with me anymore. I took the relic back to my shack because I earned it and left it under the watchful eye of one of my slimes. Now that I felt like I was him, I decided I had to dress like I was him, and I put on these sick sunglasses. I was starting to get a little big for my britches though, because when Skeletron came knocking, I had no ammo on my character to fight him with. What this meant was that I spent like 3 minutes straight just dodging all of Skeletron's attacks, only to get killed because I really wanted to talk to the nurse. But even though that little hiccup happened, Throarbin was on the way with a new weapon that would turn me from a king to a god, and also from a god to a non-believer. Throarbin was door dashing me a snowball cannon, and it was about to be over for my #1 op, Skeletron. So I decided to hit him with some well-deserved payback, but when Skeletron realized that he could never win, he drank a helicopter potion and flew away. Shortly after our legendary fight, a slime rain began, and it was time for the crew to square up against yet another boss, the King Slime. Now, as you can probably tell, I have quite a bit of experience with taking down royalty. It must be the American in my blood, but I'm a monarchy destroyer like nobody has ever seen before. Unfortunately, Toast had also finally gotten a weapon that fights from a distance. Now, I was no longer the only nuisance on our team, and I was no longer safe from all of my teammates. Because of this, I suffered my first ever boss fight death, and I no longer had any business to stand on. Not only did Toast have a ranged weapon, but it was also a diamond staff that could go through enemies and kill me at the same time. This was annoying, and I hated it. I'm the only one allowed to kill my teammates, damn it. They shouldn't be allowed to fight back. But Toast had become a monster. Toast was responsible for 4 deaths during this boss fight, which is honestly something I only expected out of Skeletron. But upon one of these Toast deaths, an observant Throarbin noticed something incredible.
Wait! I only got a 15-second respawn because Toast killed me.
And I will explain to you just how it breaks boss fights. So, in Terraria, there are multiple types of death. There are enemy deaths, there are boss deaths, and there are player deaths. An enemy death is a 15-second respawn, and you respawn with half health and drop your money. A boss death is the same as an enemy death, and it has the same consequences, except a respawn takes twice as long, 30 seconds. Now, a player death is 15 seconds like an enemy death, but you don't drop money and you respawn with full health. Now, when a boss fight is active, all enemy deaths are overwritten as boss deaths, but for some reason, player deaths aren't overwritten. So, if you have a friend kill you during a boss fight, you respawn twice as fast and with full health. What this means is we could simply kill each other when we were low and absolutely overwhelm any boss we wanted to. However, we are goobers, not gamers, and what low health was is completely up to interpretation. In this example, I was most definitely one-shot, and Skeletron kindly came up and cut me in half hot dog style. But in this example, I decided that Toast was low enough, even though it took me 15 shots with the snowball cannon to kill him. Now, in my eyes, I was totally in the right beyond the shadow of a doubt, but there may be an argument that I was a little bit in the wrong for this one. However, now that we had a sound strategy that could carry us through any boss fight whatsoever, it was time for us to commit high treason against the slime government by assassinating Archduke Slime Ferdinand and starting the Great Slime War. What this meant for me, though, was that I could put on the royal gel and finally play with my slimes. I'd been keeping them in a cage this whole time just to play with them, and it finally paid off. Now that there was no event or boss fight active, NPCs could finally move in again. And because Skeletron set this world up, you know there were a million quality of life mods on. Throarbin and I fought desperately against it, but Skeletron had his way in the end. But one of these mods, Alchemist NPC, has an NPC known as the Architect, and he sells all sorts of blocks. And let's just say I was in the market for lots of blocks. Specifically granite. Now, this might seem a little bit random, but what you guys don't understand is that I am not obligated to explain myself to you, and I am allowed to buy all the granite I want. Granite lovers, rise up. I'm a granite puppy through and through. I love Granite. All of the non-believers instantly criticized my spending choices of using 17 gold to purchase 3,000 blocks of granite when I could have bought a mini shark. But they just wouldn't get it. The beautiful blue block was calling to me like the green goblin mask, and I had to buy it. So leave me alone. Now, my teammates were confused, but supportive, and Toast decided that he would give me 33 gold to go towards a mini shark because it would make me so much more powerful and would really change the game for Eye of Cthulhu. Now, some would say that spending 45 gold on 9,999 blocks of granite is selling the run and setting my team back. But my counterpoint is, yes it is. But am I not allowed to live? Am I not allowed to laugh? And am I not allowed to love? What is this, 1984? A Brave New World? Hop on pop? Now, I wasn't quite sure how to break to my allies that I did, in fact, spend my mini shark allowance on granite, so I just favorited the stack and threw away the 200 granite excess and went on with my life. Now, what was I gonna do with the granite? At this moment, I wasn't 100% sure, if I'm being completely honest, so I decided I would go and do something productive and create an arena for the next boss, the Eye of Cthulhu. But while I was down there, I accidentally switched to my bombs and blew up an orb, summoning the boss. I was very quickly killed and decided that someone else would probably make the arena since it was much less important than the new task I had decided on. I needed to use my granite for good. I suddenly remembered that you can actually turn granite into polished granite, and I could go and construct a granite village where all granite lovers could exist peacefully and harmoniously. All I had to do was craft 9,999 polished granite, but as I sat there for 3 minutes holding down right click, a voice started speaking in the back of my head. Wyatt, did you know that 10,000 is a square number? Meaning that you need 10,000 blocks to make a 100 by 100 square? Well, oh gee, well, too bad I only have 9,999 blocks of granite. Wyatt, you know what must be done, Wyatt. Well, what would my friends say? Granite, Wyatt! Ah! Sorry, Skeletron, I will not be building you a granite house. No, I will be doing my own thing, and I'm not gonna tell you what. It was at this moment that I began construction of the most incredible megastructure created in this entire world. You see, the others were off making a brain arena and gearing up and whatnot, while I, the Chad of the group, was still at 200 HP and constructing a 100 by 100 granite block. Was I wasting time? Yes. Was I helping the team? Also, yes. Eventually though, Skeletron and Toast finished the brain arena and it was finally time for me to rejoin the group. When I arrived on the scene, I discovered that Skeletron had made the worst boss arena that I have ever seen in my entire life. Like, look at this damn thing. How on earth am I supposed to dodge under the boss when the platforms are only 6 blocks apart? So I decided to take the creative liberty of removing one of the platforms so that we could actually succeed in this stupid fight. Now, I usually do voiceover boss fights, but this clip right here was honestly so good that I just want you guys to hear it.
I could make like a video of apologizing, saying my wife left me or something, and then they're gonna tell me to do it on Infernum.
Well, what would her health bar look like on Infernum? Yeah, if I'm being honest, I'm not 100% sure what exactly I was cooking at that moment, but it was too vile for me not to share it with you. But anyway, this fight was super awesome because I had actually managed to get one power up beforehand. I was given a boomstick, and I decided to pair it with meteor shots, which are great for this close quarters boss fight in a walled-in arena. However, my teammates might not have felt the same way about meteor shots being such a great choice. Now, what I had done, essentially, was turn the Eye of Cthulhu arena into a blender, and the other 3 were just a bunch of fruits and vegetables waiting to be turned into a protein smoothie. Now, luckily, Skeletron had the foresight to make a spawn point at the bottom of the arena, so even though I was team killing without even aiming at people, we could all keep spawning in and trying again. Unfortunately, I was actually the one spending the most time dead, because believe it or not, I had far too little health due to my granite obsession. So, I was basically spawning in, filling my friends with holes, dying, and repeating. The monstrous gamer that existed during the Eye of Cthulhu fight was reduced to a frail granite-loving maniac with a gun. Yet another young actor ruined by drugs and alcohol. But eventually, we managed to actually kill the thing, and we got our treasure bags. Inside of the treasure bag was a beautiful little brain that I could keep in my pocket and would allow me to skip damage from time to time. Goated accessory. I love the Brain of Confusion, but there is one more use of the Brain of Confusion that made it my favorite accessory ever during this run. It let me dodge harpy feathers while I was constructing my granite block. I know it's the same thing, but I was making a transition. Leave me alone. That's right, we're back with another granite building moment. Eventually, the others were wondering why exactly I had so many harpy deaths, but a magician never tells his secrets. After enough deaths, I even figured out a good strategy to stop dying that involved building a granite roof over my head as I went, so they couldn't get me with their accursed feathers. Now, while I was doing this, everyone else actually did useful things. So, I'll explain all of the developments that happened during this time throughout the power of storytelling. Skeletron, he made a jungle pylon and began to work on the Queen Bee arena. Throarbin, he searched for life crystals and got full health. Toast, however, pulled up the class setups guide on the Terraria wiki and started weapon hunting. And believe it or not, I was still placing granite and being weak and whatnot. It was in the middle of my granite block construction that our first recording session came to a close. But when we were leaving the call, eventually it was just Toast and me left. And before Toast could leave, I revealed my dark secret to him. I was doing something really productive this whole time, so don't worry about it. I'll let you in on it. Just you though.
Alright, bet.
I'm placing down all 10,000 of my granite blocks.
Dang, bro.
So, just don't tell anyone about it. It'll be a surprise.
I won't.
Alright. Now, Queen Bee marked the first of Skeletron's Nah I'd Win episodes, and there are still many of these to come. Basically, what went down immediately after the world opened were two important things. I got back to building my granite block, and Skeletron got bored of waiting for the others to get the items they were farming for, and decided to summon the Queen Bee by himself. Now, to give credit where it is due, Skeletron actually held out against the Queen Bee for quite a long time, even though he claimed to have no double jump or sprint. So, let's go, Skeletron! But regardless, he failed his team and his country, and we should all be super mad at him right now. During all this, the game actually gave me a reason to take a break from granite maxing and go to spawn. That reason was the Goblin army, and now that Skeletron died too, the whole gang was back together to do some goblin murder. Or at least that's what we wanted to do, but Queen Bee is a really funny boss, because she'll hunt down other players all the way across the world, even if you're on the complete other side of the world. She's a girl boss and she takes what she wants, I guess. So that's cool. We actually ended up getting Angry Queen Bee to about half health before we all died. And then we got back up to goblin up some goblins. Yummy. I actually tried to leave and go back to my block at one point, but the goblins had somehow figured out how to get up to my granite sanctuary and ground me up like beef. Eventually, we wiped out all of the goblins and I got back to my granite for a while. When I was about 3/4 of the way done, the others decided to summon the boss and I begrudgingly decided to leave my baby while they fought the boss for like 2 minutes. What shocked me though was that they had only done 3,000 damage to the boss with 15,000 health in the entire 2-minute commute that I had. Like, what are you guys even using? I swear they're just calling the boss mean names and she's taking minor psychic damage, because that's insane. Oh wait, I see why this boss is taking so long. Even when I showed up with weapons that are supposedly good, the boss fight was taking like 15 minutes. Multiplayer Terraria is so cooked. Skeletron and I even decided to just have a normal death battle in the middle of the fight because it was way more fun than doing 100 damage to the boss every 5 seconds. Eventually, Toast ended up in a clutch situation and I was the next person to tag in chronologically, but I guess I missed the memo about there being a bed in the arena and I spawned at the surface, so the others got to steal my glory by killing the boss. Man, that is so frustrating. I wonder what I should do to take the edge off. Granite. Maybe I'll power up someday, but man, making a giant block of granite sounded so much more fun. Dudes will see this and be like, hell yeah. It was at this point that my project was finally coming to a close. I was putting the final blocks into my giant massive granite, and Skeletron informed all of us that he was bored of waiting to fight Skeletron? Wait, yeah, I'm gonna hate writing this portion. Why did you make your name the boss's name? This script is so confusing. Wait, actually, no, I have a solution. Hold on a second. Skeletron the YouTuber will still be called Skeletron, but I'm gonna refer to the boss as, oh, what's it? goofy name. Goofy names generator. Perfect. Okay, the boss is now called Wiggleton, Bugglesmith, Doodleberry the Fourth. Okay? Good. So Skeletron summoned Wiggleton, Bugglesmith, Doodleberry the Fourth when I was just finishing up, so I decided to jump down and head over there. But I used my double jump way too early and ended up somehow landing directly on top of Throarbin's head right before he teleported. But after I spawned in, I picked out a wormhole potion and teleported to him. Now, I'm gonna quickly explain how we approach wormholes in this run, since, you know, you have to be on the same team to wormhole to someone, and last I checked, you can't hurt your teammates in Terraria. Basically, the rule was that we can have one person on red team pretty much at all times, and the others could turn it on to teleport and had to pretty much instantly turn it off. In intense situations where the red team guy was dead, we could quickly switch on and off. This is way more relevant during the Wall of Flesh, but it's better if you understand now because I said so, and I know what's best for you, so listen. So now back to the Wiggleton, Bugglesmith, Doodleberry the Fourth boss fight. I arrived on the scene and almost instantly found a way to stupidly die before setting my spawn, so I had to wormhole again. But the second time, I managed to get a spawn point in. But by the time I was actually helping, the night was already like 2/3 of the way done, and I was the DPS guy. So this boss was gonna take some real locking in on my part, or we would be cooked. So I decided to get a little wacky and actually try to kill the boss and not Skeletron for once. And I was cooking. Skeletron kept on bringing up the in-game time over and over again, and he might have been worried. But as a professional Wiggleton, Bugglesmith, Doodleberry the Fourth fighter, I was hitting all of my shots, and it was looking like the timing was gonna almost work out perfectly for us to get this boss done by like 4:29 at night, aka 1 second before Wiggleton, Bugglesmith, Doodleberry the Fourth goes Dungeon Guardian mode. That was until Skeletron ruined the entire fight. And notice that I said Skeletron, you know, the one that I have clarified to be the guy and not the boss. That's right, my teammate sold the entire fight, and it was in the worst way possible. The boss had about 1,000 health left, and we had about 10 seconds left in the fight. These seem like pretty bad odds, right? But if we do some movie magic and go back a couple of seconds, we did about 1,000 damage in 5 seconds before that, which is like exactly what we needed to do. Also, even in Dungeon Guardian form, we probably wouldn't need that many hits to win, since the boss would have had like 100 or less health. But that's when I realized that Skeletron was the real boss, and not Wiggleton, Bugglesmith, Doodleberry the Fourth. Skeletron believed that he was good enough to pull off this tight timing all by himself. So he dashed forward to kill me with his volcano, which more than halved our DPS, meaning that the boss went into Dungeon Guardian mode 10 seconds after I died, which would have been plenty of time for us to tie up that boss fight. Skeletron! So, the 4 of us needed to sleep to fight the boss again. Eventually, nighttime came, and we finally got round 2 with the boss that we should have killed, but were sabotaged by a throw artist on. This time, we decided that we should do the best strategy in the game, B-maxing. This meant that I was using the bee's knees, Toast used the bee gun, and Throarbin used the hornet staff. However, keeping up his throwing streak, Skeletron refused to use the beekeeper. The only reason that I really wanted to B-max was that I was actually present for the beginning of the fight this time, and wanted to make it as interesting as placing Granite was. You know, since Wiggleton, Bugglesmith, Doodleberry the Fourth is a boring boss fight in vanilla. What the bees did was add a massive element of chaos to the fight, because look at this. The boss hovers menacingly like usual, but around him is a massive cloud of bees. And Skeletron can't do anything because his best weapon is true melee, and our bees would stun lock him. This was our way of punishing him for throwing the boss fight last time, and it made him really mad, but not quite mad enough to throw a boss fight again by killing all of us. Perfectly balanced, just like Get Good and Thanos said. Eventually, I found out that Toast didn't even have a hive pack for some reason. Are you using the hive pack yet?
Not yet.
Here, I've got one for you. Just put it on. Like, brother, you have been using the bee gun this whole time. No wonder the team had done no damage by the time I arrived late on our first attempt. So I gave him my hive pack and went back to my shotgun. Toast and I, with our combined power, managed to get the boss to like 300 health before Skeletron arrived, and this snake tried to kill me again. Like, bro, don't you remember what happened last time? Luckily, I had a Brain of Confusion dodge activate, and I survived to kill the boss. And we were finally done with Wiggleton, Bugglesmith, Doodleberry the Fourth. You know, now that I read this script out loud, I think it would have been way easier to also call the boss Skeletron. Whatever. Dungeon time! Yeah, you read this chapter right. It's a gosh darn tootin' Wyatt and Throarbin adventure. More iconic than Rick and Morty, Shaq and Kobe, or even Helen Keller and Fraud. After Tether mod, people have been begging for this, and I'm the king of fan service. So here we go into the dungeon. The others were too spineless to join us in the dungeon, so the two of us shouldered the burden of finding all of the dungeon items that we needed to beat the wall. Our main goals were the following: as many cobalt shields as possible, so that we could live without being knocked around by each other's projectiles. Throarbin was looking for a bewitching table, because he can sacrifice his firstborn child to have another minion slot. And let's just say, his firstborn child is pretty useless against the wall of flesh. I really wanted a shadow key, because I could get the Hellwing bow, which, as we all know, can tear the wall of flesh to ribbons, and also my teammates if they're dumb enough to be in front of me. Skeletron needed the Muramasa because it turns into the only good melee weapon against the wall of flesh. And don't you dare come at me with that Dark Lance stuff, alright? Night's Edge is my boo, and I would never diss it. We also wanted to try and get Toast a Magic Missile or Aqua Scepter, but honestly, Mage was always going to be pretty weak at this point anyway, so why bother? So Throarbin and I dove into the Bone Zone and began hunting. There were perils, traps, and lots of scary skeletons, but the dungeon wasn't the real adventure. No, you see, Throarbin and I were secretly planning on finding a way to force Skeletron to treat the rest of us with respect. What this meant was finding all of the Muramasas in the dungeon and keeping them from him. Now, this wasn't going to be easy because the dungeon is big and we are just two boys. But we were also determined to organize our labor and force Skeletron to give us back our workers' rights or something. But eventually, we seized the means of production and had Skeletron in a dire situation. I returned home and began bargaining with him in order to make him treat us with respect, and he wasn't very receptive at first.
Please, I beg you. Wyatt,
Skeletron.
please. I will keep killing you until you actually give it.
Yeah, he was possibly even mad. But Throarbin and I knew that we were getting through to him. Okay, I think he honestly could have hunted me down for our entire 3-hour recording session if given the chance, so I needed a new plan. Eventually, I managed to slip down to hell and get a Dark Lance. My escape was honestly legendary. I used the jungle pylon and set my spawn in the jungle, and when he teleported back to kill me at spawn with his mirror, I broke the jungle pylon before he could get back to the jungle. Galaxy brain play. But anyway, now with the Dark Lance, I hatched a plan that I like to call Operation Goon. The name isn't an acronym, I just liked it, so don't ask me what it stands for. I'm gonna show you the clip of Operation Goon, and then I'll break it down for you. Alright.
Okay.
This is gonna be a compromise. It's gonna be a compromise, alright?
Yes.
Now I need you to swear to me that you're willing to compromise. I need you to
This is
swear
gonna
to
be-
me on your YouTube channel that you're willing to
Your
compromise.
YouTube channel.
Sure, I guess.
Okay, there you go. Did Throarbin just pick that up?
No, wait.
Wait, we just followed through with the deal too. Oh my!
Oh my god.
He has to let us be now. He has to let us be now. We did it. We did it. So basically, by compromise, we meant that he had to use the Dark Lance that I had found, and he unknowingly agreed on his channel that he would be happy using the Dark Lance. But then when he agreed to that, Throarbin waited to scoop the lance up, basically meaning that Skeletron had to use the volcano and chill out unless he promised not to intentionally kill us with the Night's Edge. And let's just say, the upcoming moments are why I am now the rightful owner of the Skeletron channel.
Okay, cheat.
We go. Is he actually going to do it?
I think he's actually gonna do it.
Alright guys, you can join now.
Oh my god.
Oh no. He's just going to come in. He's got the Zenith, you know.
He went so quiet when you said that.
He did.
Oh my god, look, where did that come from? I have a nice edge now. What?
Bro.
Oh.
Guys, how could this possibly happen?
Wait, it sounds almost
Where did-
impossible. He was a good boy this year and Santa brought him that. Oh, he does
Oh
have
my
a nice
god.
edge. Wow.
Now come here. Turn on
Okay.
PvP.
Dude is so lame.
Yeah, bro used cheat sheet to get a Night's Edge. We truly broke this man, and honestly, just that alone was enough to satisfy me and Throarbin both. So with our mission accomplished, we all united and began trying the Wall of Flesh. Okay, so let's just break down how this boss works real quick. On the left side of your screen, you have the wall, unless you are an unlovable psychopath and fight the boss right to left, and in that case, seek help. But back to my diagram. We have the whole boss on the left side of the screen, and then we have the playable zone over on the right. In there, you'll be attacked by the occasional laser and a couple hungry mouths and worms. But regardless of how many players are in the game, the playable zone is always the same, meaning that as you add more players, the zone becomes more tight. Which since, you know, your teammates can hurt you, Yeah, this fight was gonna suck like no fight before. If we hadn't been up to hijinks and no good in our other boss fights, literally all of them would have been first tries. But this one was gonna be hell. Well, not like the location, you know what I mean. So at first, we banned wormhole potions during this fight, because there would be split seconds where we didn't damage each other while teleporting. And that is bad. So we tried the boss once and got it down to about 2,000 health, which isn't too bad. All we had to do was better than that, right? I mean, we even had a plan. I stay on the top platform, Skeletron bashes in the low eye, Toast shoots up at an angle, and Throarbin cheers from afar. So the fight should go smoothly, right? Right? Bro, it had 20,000 health left. What the hell happened to us? This defeat was so tragic that we literally just ended the recording on that and waited for the next week. You know how I mentioned that our recording sessions are 3 hours long? Yeah, that's a really long time. And what if I told you that this one boss fight took almost the entirety of our next session? So, in order to make this portion of the video not boring, I'm gonna give you guys all of the different strategies we used, and we'll rate them on a scale of 1 to 5 that I'm gonna call the Flesh Meter. Okay. So up first we have Toast Demon Sight, which was a massive DPS upgrade compared to what we had before, but none of that matters when we all suck at the game and leave the boss at 23,000 health. 3 fleshes. Up next, we have one of my personal favorite attempts, Ceiling Throarbin. This strategy involves stuffing Throarbin up into the ceiling like a little rat so that he could actually do some damage to the boss. It also kept him relatively safe so that he'd be able to survive long enough for us to arrive on the scene after we died. Lastly, we actually did a bunch of damage and had an attempt on par with the first one. So this run gets 4.5 fleshes. Up next, we have a new arc of Skeletron. In this arc, Skeletron decided that melee sucks and that he needed to get a star cannon, which is cool, I guess. I was a little annoyed because I would have been doing like 30% more damage if I had the star cannon, but I also think that the Hellwing bow is more fun. But regardless, we did end up mercilessly bullying Skeletron for giving up on melee for this fight, and that was kind of fun. So, 2 fleshes. Up next, we have a pretty standard run, but I used potions! But I died really fast. Very sad. But we actually did almost win. However, Toast forgot to have any wormhole potions, and he just didn't teleport into the fight. Very disappointing. I give this one 3 wormholes out of 5 flesh. Now this next one is heartbreaking. We were doing great, as usual, but the ending was one of the greatest tragedies since Shakespeare. Now all of us were dead. Well, at least all of us except for Toast, who was holding his own like an absolute goat. I finally had the opportunity to spawn in, and Toast only had to switch to red team, and we would be back in it. Now watch this. I was literally milliseconds away from teleporting in and finishing out the boss fight, but the wormhole potion didn't have enough time. I'm still crying about what could have been to this day. 4.5 party girl bathwater. Now we're down to the last 2 runs, finally. This second to last one is a run that ruined my public image and I will never financially recover from it. Computer, pull up a picture of a baby orangutan. Okay, now if you start to get mad at me, just try to get mad at this little guy first, okay? Now that my bases are covered, watch this ending.
Wait, Wyatt, is it close?
Wyatt, clutch!
Join red team, join red team, join red team, join red team.
It has 200 HP.
No.
Get me out!
Join red team.
I could.
Join
I would
red
have died.
team.
I would have died. I would have died. I would have died. Ugh. Ugh.
I'm so done. I'm actually done. It's Jover.
Now. I know it looks really bad, but if you remembered my last attempt, Toast was killed for trying to switch to red team during the ending of the fight. And in my mind, the exact same thing was gonna happen to me. You see, right when Skeletron spawned in, my last heart was small enough I could fit it in my pocket. And if I took one more hit, I was cooked. Now, to switch teams, I had to remove focus from this intentionally intense desperation phase of the wall. So, I was almost guaranteed to die. What this meant was that I was gonna die pretty much either way, unless I managed to clutch up the ending. So, my analytical mind decided to put all of my bets on the clutch, and like a true gambler, I lost it all. This run gets 3.1415 red teams. Finally, we've made it to the last run, and we'd already burnt 2 hours of our recording session. Now, in situations like this, the mind of man can be warped to do insane things. As a man with a strong mind, I decided to get a bundle of balloons so that I would never miss a dodge again. But the weaker of us were...
I'm in the middle of some very important business.
It sounds pretty important from the way
It
you
is.
said that.
I'm trying to get us the ultimate strat for killing the wall here.
We're gonna hear.
It might take a while too.
What?
What?
We can
Gonna
see,
use a
yeah,
golf
the
cart.
chat is so funny. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, Throarbin wanted to get a golf cart. But can you blame the man? Look at the aura that he has when whipping that thing. Like, I was skeptical when he was spending 15 minutes hitting golf balls, but when he showed up with the Mad Jacks, restricted copyright, Genesis 250 with standard sandstone steel rear flip seat, easy go RXV, I knew that he meant business. I'm pretty sure that the others got potions or something stupid, but golf carts. So now, we were ready for this fight beyond the shadow of a doubt. So we finally began. I was in my normal location on top. Skeletron was lighting it up from the bottom, and Toast hit that nasty 45-degree angle, and Throarbin supervised us from the ceiling. So basically, none of us died until the boss was at like 5,000-ish health, and I died like a little goober. Then 2,000 HP later, both Toast and Throarbin died, and it was all up to Skeletron. Now would he win, or would he die? I literally already said this is the run, stop guessing, you already know. That's right, my boy pulled it off, and the three of us went to collect the booty. Once we had finally beaten the wall, it was time for probably the most boring part of the game, early hard mode. I don't like to call myself a boss rusher, but hot dog do I love me a good old boss fight from time to time. And early hard mode absolutely kills the rhythm that I get at the end of pre-hard mode. Like, once you have the gear to kill the eye, you can do evil boss, craft armor from evil boss, kill Bean Skeletron. Oh wow, it's wall of flesh time. It feels so good in my gross little brain-rotted mind. So, in order to make early hard mode more fun for me, I decided that I would do the most fun event in Terraria all by myself, the Old One's Army. Haters will call me mean names, but joke's on you, I love shooting side to side. Unfortunately, nobody else wanted to join me, so I just kind of lost because the health bars are scaled for 4 players. But my heart was there, and that's all that matters. But after my first attempt, I actually devised a plan, which was finally putting my granite block to use. But little did I know, this would put the secrecy of the block in jeopardy. Believe it or not, 100 blocks is not enough space to actually fight the event, so I was devastated. But in my haste to do the event, I didn't notice that I was being followed by one Throarbin Stewart Gaming. After bowing my head in defeat, I looked back up only to see a bearded man with a red hat looking back at me. That was the moment that I knew that my cover was up and everyone was going to discover that I was a granite addict. So I only had 2 options. Option 1, reason with him. And this has its benefits, since maybe I could find an ally in my granite eating struggles who could help me come to terms with my true self. Or option 2, murder. You really think my secret is safe with anyone? Of course not. I had to kill him for sticking his nose where it doesn't belong, but oh boy could he not die quietly. He just had to run his mouth. Around the time he discovered the block, Skeletron started to feel left out and came looking for us. And just as I was about to kill the rat, another gamer had arrived. It was truly over now. Everyone else in the lobby had found out, and Skeletron decided it was better to put me to death than to accept me for the granite goblin I was. So, I took Throarbin out and died peacefully at Skeletron's blade. Knowing that everyone was against me now, I just needed more power. At this point, I had also decided that I was never going to get to 400 health, just out of spite for Throarbin and his perfectionism. So if you notice that I'm at 380 HP until the end of the game, know that it is because of the granite moment. But now I could finally get my adamantite repeater and get some good old adamantite armor. Best part? I didn't mine a single bit of that ore myself. I only profited off of everyone else's work and played with granite blocks. What a wonderful world we live in. It was about this time that our 3rd recording session came to a close and we reconvened later for the mech bosses. Okay, so I kind of lied at the end of the last chapter, because before we did the mech bosses, we made sure to demolish Queen Slime. But because I'm hopelessly in love with her, I didn't want to bring a ton of attention to how badly we beat her. Like, we killed her so badly that I honestly feel sick about it to this day. But it is important to mention, because she gave Throarbin the blade staff, which is honestly just goated beyond the shadow of a doubt. So as much as I hate to do this, I have to talk about this massacre. Love you, baby girl. Okay, now I can talk about the mech bosses. Going into these fights, we honestly had pretty mid gear. Like, I was strong since ranged is just busted in early hard mode, but Skeletron decided that melee was washed again, and Toast, as a normal human being, absolutely despises fishing, so magic was a little weak. And Throarbin, oh Throarbin, he wanted to get the firecracker, but I was the only one willing to go down and help him with grinding the wall of flesh, and well, I suck too badly for us to pull it off alone. Because of this, Throarbin was honestly just way too weak, and it was gonna be a tight squeeze for us to beat any of the mech bosses before the end of the night. But regardless, we laid it all on the table and decided to summon Wiggleton, Bugglesmith, Doodleberry the 4th Prime. And yes, I'm using that name because I have to for the sake of journalistic integrity. Sue me. But unfortunately, even when we tried our best, the boss still had like a third of its health left at the end of the night, and boy is that just too much. So we all found things to work on during the day. I decided that maybe wings would be cool, but gee, do I wonder what Skeletron's up to right now. Brother! I had to drop what I was doing in the wings department because honestly, it would kind of be dope if we killed Duke Fishron right now. Like imagine if we just ran through the mechs because I had the tsunami. Like it would be curtains. So I gleefully went out to join him since I tend to think I'm pretty good at the Duke Fishron fight. Sadly, our low damage paired with being one shot by almost every attack meant that we were no match for this boss. But by the time the fight was over, it actually did happen to almost be nighttime. But it wasn't like until 2/3 of the way through the night that we actually decided to fight the destroyer. And guess what? We lost! Wow. So I basically just let everyone know that I had somebody's bionic eyeball in my pocket, and if we slept until tomorrow night, I would eat it in front of them. Crazily enough, when I ate the eyeball, some bigger eyeballs got mad and tried to kill us. Okay, what did I just write? If you didn't get what I just said, I summoned the twins, like the Terraria boss with the 2 eyes. Yeah, that one. I love this boss because the twins are easy, and always will be the easiest mech boss, especially if you're a selfish little freak like me in multiplayer. You see, we were having a nice twins team fight, and sharing, caring, and all that nonsense. But then I decided to be a bit devious. I stole Spasmatism. Yeah, I took him. He's mine now. And where did I take him, you might ask? The ocean. I took him to the ocean. We made this sandcastle. So, while the others were dying over and over to Retinizer and just being generally bad at the game and everything, I was just casually no-hitting Spasmatism at the ocean. That was when the others killed Retinizer, and I got to reveal my secret identity. I'm actually a clown car. I activated domain expansion, red team, and my cursed spirits all jumped out of me and started mercilessly beating up the eyeball. Eventually, we actually managed to defeat the twins, and we could probably wipe out all of the other mech bosses with this new DPS, especially if Throarbin got the twin staff, since it is a super strong summon weapon and everything. But were we actually gonna let him do that? Of course not. Skeletron made the Excalibur, and I made a repeater, as well as 2 armor pieces. So Throarbin simply had to open the storage in horror and see that there were only 2 hollowed bars left.
Cannot allow it. No!
I just made an ancient hollowed helmet. Oh my god.
Legendary.
Oh, not me.
Okay. Insert Fortnite take the L emote and Throarbin's social security number. Awesome. Now we did another little sleep because it was time to fight Wiggleton, Bugglesmith, Doodleberry the 4th Prime again. Luckily for us, we were actually able to do damage this time, making this boss a cakewalk. My original plan was to steal the Prime Cannon and lure it over to the ocean, but unfortunately it loves its master too much and wouldn't come with even when I asked nicely. So we just had to do this boss the normal way, which meant I died to a bunch of friendly projectiles and barely ever because the boss. Wow, we're playing the game with friendly fire, remember? I think Toast's stinky yellow piss ruined more of my boss fight attempts than literally any other thing in the entire game. I would just be chilling in a fight and all of a sudden I looked like one of those TikToks where the guy holding the camera is just peeing on someone while they talk. But that's okay. That's what showers are for, just not golden showers. Never again. I love this fight because Wiggleton, Bugglesmith, Doodleberry the 4th Prime's head just kind of spins freely and does nothing, and it's so pathetic and I love it. I actually tried to adopt him, but Skeletron wouldn't let me and curb stomped the giant robot with his legendary sword Excalibur. Its treasure bag fell down this big hole too. Epic. Finally, it was destroyer time. But before we could do this fight, Toast and I came together on something. Terrorism. In the game, of course. I see you, feds. The terrorism that I'm referring to in this instance is the act of getting the Daedalus Stormbow with holy arrows and the meteor staff. Now, some of you are thinking, oh gee, those are really good weapons for the destroyer, but what on earth could those have to do with terrorism? Well, let me remind you. These weapons spawn in 1 gorillion projectiles, and I'm not sure if you can read, but this video is about a run where friendly fire is enabled. So let's do a little bit of math. As many projectiles as the amount of times I've had relations with your mother, and friendly fire equals RIP Throarbin and Skeletron. Yeah, Toast and I committed crimes against humanity that day. With our Geneva Convention violating loadout, we made quick work of the boss. Actually, the only time I ever died in this fight was when Skeletron got fed up of being killed by my arrows and just flat out murdered me in cold blood, which might have been deserved, but honestly, we can go damage for damage right now, and I am almost certainly on top, so leave me alone, bone boy. But fortunately, we still did win, and we got our treasure bags. Or wait, did we? Tell them, Throarbin.
Full hollowed armor.
Hey, Throarbin, I've got your optic stuff.
Wait, no!
Oh my god!
I couldn't even get a treasure bag, dude!
Oh.
Hey, you can use our health bars. Don't worry, don't worry, don't worry.
No, I cannot. We need to kill him again to get 4 sets of...
What?
Yeah, Skeletron chose violence when he woke up and decided to close the world before Throarbin could make the optic staff like a little troll man. But also, he unfortunately blocked Throarbin from even getting his treasure bag. This resulted in an angry Throarbin, and Throarbin made me, so I am legally obligated to take his side in this war. Skeletron, you're a big old poopy head. Yo, producer, was that too far? Oh, it was? Sorry, let me try that again. Skeletron, I will cannibalize your firstborn child in front of you. I honestly don't know why I gave Plantera her own section on this script. This boss is honestly so easy, but I guess I can't skip over it because she is important for progression or whatever, but I'll put in some copyright-free GTA car falling footage so you don't get too bored. Better sport? Great. So we summoned this boss like 5 minutes after starting this recording, and it was because we didn't need anything more. Other than Throarbin, but we luckily had enough hollowed bars for him to craft his optic staff, and he was finally happy. We summoned the boss and fought her in the Queen Bee arena that we had made for, you guessed it, Queen Bee. With this half-baked arena, we were still eating this boss like nobody's business. And boy, would I eat this boss all day and all night. Now, at some point during this boss fight, I also had this moment for the highlight reels.
I hope you die, like right now.
I would never do
How?
that.
Dude, he
Yeah,
actually got out of there. Nice.
Yeah, he dodged it. Let me kill you. Let me kill you.
Okay, you're welcome. You're welcome. I was using Observation Hockey, Ultra Instinct Mode, my Sharingan, and SpongeBob Krabby Patty Dodge. Nobody could harm me, other than Skeletron, but like that doesn't count because I said so. Eventually, the plant died and we were in Golem prep phase. In this run, Golem is like 50 times harder than Plantera, and I'll let you guess why. If you guessed Small Arena, I will send you $100 on mouse pay. Just kidding, my phone doesn't take mouse pay. Get owned. Before Golem though, we wanted to try and get Skeletron the Terra Blade because it's a good weapon. Stop making me explain myself. Just accept that I'm always right and be happy with that. However, the Mothron luck that we were having was abysmal and we couldn't get a Broken Hero's sword before the event ended. So we tried again and no sword. Now's a good time to mention that we only had like an hour to record during this session because Toast had to go. So we really needed to at least try Golem once before we had to wait another week to meet up. This meant that we needed to brave out the jungle temple like the great adventurers we were. Or at least the others had to. I was too busy at home trying to actually get my first pair of wings since I was too much of a goober to just craft some earlier. Yeah, I'm pretty sure fairy wings are on tier for this point in the game, but that was when disaster struck and I had to make a split-second decision to save the entire team. Toast had to leave in like 5 minutes and my teammates were on death's door in the temple. So it was up to me to teleport in there and stay alive until everyone respawned. It literally would only take 15 seconds since they all died within like 3 seconds to different traps somehow. Now watch me clutch up so that we could beat this boss on time.
Stand still.
Yeah, I might have lied just a little bit because I died immediately after being told not to die. Well, looks like we have to wait 7 days to try this again. Damn. During the next recording, Skeletron was determined that we were gonna beat the game, and was gonna be really mad if we didn't since he has an upload schedule, you know? So, we did what I like to call the old flip-flop, which is where we just couldn't decide if we wanted to fight Golem or Fishron first. We literally did a Fishron run, lost, did a Golem run, lost, and then did Fishron again. Like, look at boss progression, you fools. There's a list of which ones are easier to do first, but Skeletron had a Fishron obsession, I guess. You may have noticed that we were no longer actually goofing around in this run anymore. Like, if I were to go off and build a house somewhere, I would have been flamed for some reason. Like, aren't I allowed to have fun? What we were now in the middle of is what I like to call boss rushing hell, where we literally just fight bosses because everyone had grown to hate this run and wanted to make their videos already. But let me pose you a question. What has more views on YouTube? 30 minutes of boss fight footage and no character? Or Family Guy funny moments? Yeah, that's what I thought. But there were still funny moments during the boss fights, or at least I should say funny moments for everyone except for Skeletron. You remember that second Fishron fight that I brought up like 10 seconds ago? Well, during this fight, Skeletron and I actually decided to just go fight the boss by ourselves because we were bros and Toast and Throarbin were excommunicated from the bro group. But even though there were only 2 of us, Skeletron and I were both quite good at the Fishron fight, so we were just kind of flying through the boss. I even was only doing minor trolling and only used the Daedalus Stormbow 1 time. At one point, I realized that if we actually worked together, we would probably be able to beat this guy, since neither of us had actually died to the boss's patterns, but instead to each other's projectiles. So I sat on top of the house and became a mounted gunner with glorified bullets. Eventually, we even started to just chill in the house and let the other guy do the fight by himself. Also, I started referring to myself as Little Pig Boy at this time, which is in reference to my mask and nothing else. But once the boss hit 3rd phase, things were about to get complicated. Let me set the scene real quick. Skeletron was having his turn with the boss, you know, fighting and whatnot. I was taking a wonderful nap and resting up my bones for whenever it would become my turn. But there was another force incoming, and that force was the Throw Squad themselves, Toast and Throarbin. Now, Skeletron was doing great at 3rd phase. He knows how to count to 3, which means he can do the phase with his eyes shut. But Toast and Throarbin really wanted to come in and claim treasure bags even though they had done no work at all during this boss fight, so arrive they did. Now this fight will be studied in history books as the worst 30 seconds of gaming in history, so I'll put on my History Channel cap and give you guys the analysis. So, I was off duty and Skeletron was on when the invaders arrived. They soared over my head like bomber jets as I slept. So they went to get their first hits on the boss after setting their spawn points. Now, Skeletron was wise and decided to mirror back to me while the others did their portion of the fight, and Throarbin died within seconds. When Throarbin died, the boss came to me and Skeletron in the shack, and we went into panic mode. I sprung into action and did some damage, and Skeletron barely escaped. Once I felt like we were safe again, I returned to the shack. Toast was murdered by Skeletron, and this was probably for the best. So now we were back to normal and Skeletron was fighting the boss. But Toast, oh Toast, he thought that he hadn't hit the boss yet and went back in. Now because of Toast's attacks, Skeletron was knocked out of rhythm and the boss destroyed him. But that's okay, that's fine. The boss had like 4,000 health left and the rest of us were alive. Or were we? Watch this throw that cost the entire 20-minute fight.
He's dead.
It's up to you, Throarbin.
I don't know how many dash. Oh, he's on 1.
Please, Throarbin, please.
No. We were all escaping the house, but Throarbin's whip killed both me and Toast in one fell swoop. And Throarbin, well, let's just say that he can't count to 3. Now this loss actually hurt me, but nobody took it as hard as Skeletron. Bro literally said nothing on the call for like 30 minutes. He just silently went down, summoned the golem, and we died to the golem. Now this is the time period that the name of this chapter truly comes from, and it's why I needed to talk about that one failed Fishron fight for like 5 minutes. Skeletron was broken. Like he hated us more than he hates, I don't know, what does Skeletron hate? Oh yeah, playing Terraria without quality of life. Luckily, we did beat Golem on our next attempt, but that didn't change his hatred of us. Now this is the point in the game where getting upgrades for every class kinda requires doing some miscellaneous events and bosses so that you can be powerful enough for Moonlord. Toast and Throarbin would have really benefited from a Martian Madness, and Throarbin needed to do a Pumpkin Moon for Summoner because you want a Necromantic Scroll. I was kinda chillin', but I did definitely need a Truffle so that I could get more than like 44 defense. But there is one class that genuinely can push through to Moonlord with nothing more than fighting Golem. And who had that class other than the guy who wanted this run to just be done so he could never talk to us again? Skeletron! Using the beetle husks that we got, he could just make his Moonlord armor. And his entire fight for Moonlord just uses the Daybreak and the Solar Eruption. Accessories? Nah, he had a glove. And what else does a melee player need? People give Summoner crap, and I guess it is the least filled out class, but damn, melee is just way too easy. And the CEO of Impatient happened to be the one playing this class in this run, and he had the wonderful ability of just going off and starting boss fights without us. Like, while I was making a surface mushroom biome and Throarbin was hoping to expand the hollow for an Empress fight so he could get the best whip for Moonlord, Skeletron just slithered over to the dungeon and started a cultist fight. Like, brother, leave some progression for the rest of us. I'm not gonna talk about the cultist fight. It's lame and stupid, and we did it first try, so don't worry about it. I did actually teach Skeletron about the glowing clones thing that I learned during my classic mode feat playthrough, so that was cool. But now that we were on the pillars, it was kinda just an arms race to stop Skeletron from being the first to get his fragment weapons. So I went and helped Throarbin get his pillar halfway done before returning to mine. Now the 3 of us other than Skeletron kept talking about teamwork, so when I went to my pillar, they seemed to think that I needed help, which could not be farther from the truth. I had the vortex pillar, bro. Give me a nice warm hole to hide in and the pillar is just over. But Toast and his kind heart just wanted to show me his new Spectre armor and help me out. Now look at this. I was chilling and hanging out and even vibing until Toast started using his weapons and his little tendrils started ripping me apart. I probably would have gotten my pillar before Skeletron if Toast didn't kill me like 3 times. And what's worse is Throarbin wanted to repay my kindness with kindness of his own. Now, that wasn't very kind of you, Throarbin. All rage aside though, I love my teammates and I'm so glad that they cared about me enough to come and help. Well, other than this. Like, it would have cost you nothing to not hit me with the solar eruption. Nothing. But it was also kind of funny, so I'm only a little mad. Now it was Nebula time, aka the only hard pillar. Solar pillar, stay on the ground. Vortex pillar, stay in the ground. Stardust pillar, bully circles. Nebula pillar, kick a wall with a toothpick under your toenail. So yeah, I was basically no help because I had 380 health still out of principle, but I also didn't have Shroomite armor because I was being rushed. I at least had a Vortex Speeder and a Phantasm, but like, what help is that when the Brain Man does 256 damage to me? So I just tried to help for a little bit, but eventually the others actually just won because they put their spawn point in the jungle, and I couldn't survive long enough to set my spawn point in the jungle. But wait, it's Moonlord time. Wow. Now I suck at Moonlord, and I have beaten this boss like a million times. But every time I've beaten this boss, it's just because I run in a straight line, or a mod makes the boss have like more understandable attack patterns. So I genuinely hate this boss. And the rest of us also seem to suck at it as well because we died before even doing 100,000 damage to this 750,000 health boss. So of course there must have been a gear issue since, you know, all of us died almost instantly other than Skeletron because he's playing melee. So naturally, I had a shopping list of accessories and armor that I wanted. I was prepared to go and get a quiver and a sniper scope and really take my damage to the next level. Skeletron! I know I've yelled this man's name like 4 times in the last 10 minutes, but it's all love, don't worry. But oh my god, dude, he just summoned the boss again like a minute after we lost. And guess what? We lost the fight again. Shocker. But you know what's even more heinous than summoning the boss? He had the gumption to say, man, maybe I just need Fishron wings. So he went to the ocean and summoned Fishron, got the wings, and then was like, okay, we can win now, and summoned the boss again. Like, my ankles were broken by this I-in-team mentality so badly that I was speechless. Now, he did suffer trauma earlier, in all fairness, so it was kind of understandable. But if you really wanted to get the game over with, just let us gear up. Also, if any of you try to, like, spread hate to Skeletron because of this, I will literally... This video is for fun. And even if it seems like I'm mad at Skeletron, it is for the sake of storytelling and comedic purposes. I really like Skeletron, and he's a cool guy to make content and play Valorant with, so don't be jerks and spread hate. I know I can't stop all of you, but if you're being a doofus, you deserve to be trapped in the Nebula Pillar with only a copper short sword and no accessories IRL. Okay, now that that's out of the way, God, I hate you, Skeletron! So, all of us were hopelessly undergeared, and we had no choice but to keep fighting Moonlord. So, unfortunately, the team went to the dark side. We did the unholy Moonlord strategy that I hate more than any other in-game cheese ever in any game in history. This is the multiplayer Moonlord cheese that consists of everyone being at their own locations on the map and staying alive as long as possible, so that we could A, not all die at once, and B, not ever hit each other. And what is the purpose of this run, I might ask? Friendly fire. I think you can see why I was a little frustrated now. Like, we did the final friendly fire boss by not engaging with the challenge. It's like running a marathon only to use a Mad Jack's restricted copyright Genesis 250 with standard sandstone steel rear flip seat, easy go RXB golf cart to do the last mile. Like, suck it up. This is a marathon and you just invalidated the other 25 miles you ran because the most important one of the 26 miles of the race was done in a cheap way. But I digress. Because even when we did this strategy, we were still losing to the boss. And that was because sometimes when the boss teleports, he would just be mid-laser and one-shot us. Now, whenever the boss got to Skeletron, it would generally be over there for a couple minutes and I would have time to kick back and relax. I even made a really long platform so I could use my goat at one point, but when Skeletron died, the rest of us would fall like dominoes. It was during this fight that I learned that I had the least defense of anyone on the team somehow. The Ranger Chlorophyte set is actual doo-doo and I had no clue. I even bought buffs at one point, but because the best I could do was like 80,000 damage before dying, it was kind of embarrassing. Now, you might say that it was because I only had 380 health, but I offer up a counterpoint. Shut up. The health thing was out of honor, and the armor thing was out of a lack of time. It is very, very different. But eventually, we had the run. Everybody loves the run. Your mom loves the run. Your grandma loves the run. And Joe Biden loves the run. Literally everyone. And this run was just like any other, except it wasn't. I mean, like, the fight was the same. I summoned the boss, did my 8,000 damage and died, and then I waited for it to come back to me. But it was a little different because we won. I have no clue how to make this boring ass strategy interesting, so I'll just show you the cool things I did while I waited. This is what I like to call flying in circles. Very good cardio, and it doubles as flight practice. 10 out of 10. Actually, the boss was bouncing back to me pretty frequently. It didn't take that long between all of my attempts. And I died pretty quickly as usual, but when I died, something miraculous happened. Yeah, that's right. My truffle spawned in. Now, if I were to try and get Shroomite during this fight, I would probably throw. So I decided that if we lost, I would go and get that stuff. But for the time being, I had to go back to entertaining myself. Throarbin even offered to run to the truffle for protection purposes. Man, it's great to have teammates who care. Wait, run to him? Thank God Throarbin was bluffing, because if the truffle had died, I probably would have had a mental breakdown. But honestly, whatever I was doing at this point wasn't too far off of a mental breakdown.
What is... Beautiful.
But actually, I did get to see the boss one more time before it died. And notice how I said one more time? Because Skeletron was about to do the most evil thing he did in this entire run. But real quick, I did die because of a tree in this portion, because tree is evil. But now to Skeletron's final and most heinous crime. Since all of us were squishy other than Skeletron, the boss got back to him with like 10,000 health left, and the three of us were begging him to change to red team so we could all get the fabled Moonlord death footage that we all craved. But what did he do? He took it all for himself. Downright diabolical. And you know what's worse to me? He offered to send us his footage. I don't want your damn footage, Skeletron. I don't want your pity. I wanted to go pew 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 and make the octopus monster's heart explode with my teammates. So I was noble, and I refused Skeletron's footage because there was still one boss left to fight. And let's just say that the real final boss of this run was the friends that we made along the way. We were gonna have a death battle at the end because this is friendly fire, god damn it. Now the stakes were quite high, as we would give the winner the title of the best gamer in history or something. And I wanted that really bad. So we all lined up on the platforms, counted off, and went. Toast had the last prism, which was quite scary, but with my 44 defense, I was pretty unassuming, and he lasered down Skeletron. This was good, because the defense monster died in seconds to the invisible last prism, but now all I had to do was kill Toast before he could turn that thing. And actually that was quite easy because he was pretty squishy. Now, all that stood between me and fame and fortune was Throarbin, and he still had a mid-hard mode whip. So this was like doing a basketball 1v1 against an infant. That's right, I won. I'm the king, and I will be forever the greatest gamer in history. So those of you still here right now picked the correct perspective of this run to watch. You could have been on any of the other three's videos, and you would have been so disappointed when your guy loses at the end. But nope, you won too. And you can all win now if you hit that subscribe button. That's right, the video's over now. Go outside, you goblins. Peace.